Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Bryndís, and today I want to talk to you about the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This book was published in 2011. It's been quite successful. It got the Orange Prize for Fiction, which is now called the Women's Prize for Fiction, in 2011 or 2012, and it's won other awards as well. And it was Madeline Miller's debut novel, so it's very well done for her, for sure. She is a writer of kind of mythological realism, where she's kind of reimagining stories from Greek mythology. And since publishing Song of Achilles, which, like I said, was her first book, she published her second novel, which is called Circe, in 2018. And she also has two shorter stories, Galatea, which was published in 2013, and Heracles' Bow in 2012. And she has announced that she's working on another novel. So I have only read the Song of Achilles by her. So both Circe, Galatea, and Heracles' Bow, sorry about butchering those names, are still on my TBR. And yeah. Anyway, so I actually listened to this book as a audiobook, but I bought the copy in paperback because I really enjoyed it and I wanted to own the copy, and maybe I will read it again then in physical form. But okay, I'm trying to think how I can review this book without having spoilers, but I'm really gonna try my best. But so I love Greek mythology. I love all mythology, Roman and Norse and whatever. So just for that single reason, I love to read and to like watch movies and TV shows and whatever that's based on mythology, or like ancient Greece and ancient Rome and all these things. So obviously this book, as soon as I knew about it, I didn't know about it until probably when it kind of had like a rekindling. I feel like it's like Book Talk or Bookstagram famous book, which are platforms that I don't really use, at least not TikTok. But I've discovered this book, I think maybe 2022, and I was like, it sounds very interesting. And then finally I read it this January, or listened to it, and I loved it. It was a really nice and a lovely book. And just because it's a Greek mythology retelling, made me want to read it. Now it is a romance, which usually is not necessarily something that I go for. So I wasn't necessarily sure that I would like kind of the spin of the romance. Before I read it, I didn't know what type of like the form of the romance. But anyway, I did read it, and like I said, I listened to it as an audiobook. It was narrated by Fraser Douglas, who is a British actor and author, and he did a really great job with narration, for sure. And I really enjoyed this book. You know, it made me laugh, it made me cry, it had me engaged, and I absolutely loved it. It wasn't necessarily the perfect book, so I didn't give it 5 stars, and I only gave like whole stars. I haven't dipped my toe into half stars or quarter stars, at least not yet. But so I'm giving it 4 stars, but it's a very strong 4 stars for sure. So the Song of Achilles is a retelling of the Trojan War. So in case you don't know, the Trojan War was a legendary conflict in ancient Greek, or in Greek mythology, between the Greeks and like their kind of allies, and the city of Troy. And the war happened because Paris, who was a Trojan prince, he kidnapped, or whatever he did, removed Helen, who was a wife to Menelaus, and he took her, and they went to Troy. And Menelaus, who was the king of Sparta, which was an ally of Greece, part or like a city-state within ancient Greece, was obviously not very happy about that. And so Helen is therefore known as the woman with the face that launched 1,000 ships, from a play by Christopher Marlowe, who was a playwright in Tudor Jacobean England, basically at the same time as Shakespeare. Now, when I've been reading, and like I've read a lot of things about this over the years, and there is some debate on whether Helen was kidnapped and like raped by Paris, or whether she left Menelaus on her own free will, because Menelaus was not known for being necessarily a very kind of gentle, nice man. There's also some possibility that the god or goddess Aphrodite was rewarding Paris for something, and that therefore caused Helen to fall in love with him. You know, it's mythology. Everything could have possibly have happened, or not happened as it is. Anyway, so I would, if you haven't read, well, I suppose you can go into it, like, you can either just read the Song of Achilles, not knowing anything about the war, and let everything that happens be a surprise. So there are no spoilers, because the Trojan War is told in the Iliad by Homer. So if you have read the Iliad, obviously you know everything that's going to happen in the Song of Achilles. It is, very true to the Iliad, like the main events at least. So I actually think that reading the Iliad gives you a great context to the Song of Achilles, and it's a great, everybody should read the Iliad. But if you find that a little bit overwhelming, you could also read Stephen Fry's Troy, where he is basically telling the story of the Iliad or the Trojan War, but it's perhaps a more accessible, and if you listen to it as an audiobook, it's narrated by Stephen Fry himself. It's perfection. So definitely recommend that one as well. So I had read both the Iliad. Well, I read the Iliad many years ago, like 20 years ago. But I read Troy by Stephen King in 2022. So I remembered very well all the kind of many of the events of the Trojan War, and so obviously I was not surprised with the events of the Song of Achilles, but I still think you can read it and enjoy it without having read the other things. But anyway, this book, so in this book, Patroclus is the narrator and kind of one of the main characters. So in Greek mythology, he was a hero of the Trojan War. And he was quite an important character in Homer's The Iliad. He was a childhood friend of Achilles, and they were companions of, during the Trojan War and basically throughout their life. And here you can see a painting, for example, of Achilles bandaging his arm, Patroclus' arm. So they were known to have been very close friends. And in the book, Madeline Miller depicts them as being lovers. I actually really love their love story. There are, like, the fact that they are lovers in this book isn't like something that she has completely made up. There were definitely rumors or an undercurrent in the Iliad indicating this. And in ancient Greece, I mean, homosexuality wasn't necessarily something that was celebrated between grown men, but yeah, so that is probably why it wasn't stated obviously in the Iliad. And but in this book, I think that she depicts their love absolutely beautifully. Like, especially, I find that, well, throughout the book, really, but in the beginning, I really liked, because it's all from Patroclus's point of view, the book, and his inner dialogue and him talking about, he's really attracted to Achilles, and he's like looking at Achilles, and then all of a sudden Achilles is looking back at him, and then he gets like all flustered and blushes, and it's just such a beautiful depiction of beginning of love between young, like, teenagers, when they are like, oh my god, does he like me back, type of anxiety. And I thought that it was really very well done, quite very realistic. I remembered my own experiences as a teenager when I liked a boy, and I was like, does he like me back? That feeling. She does that so well, I think. And it's even like, because it's a little bit more, maybe more, I don't know, more something, but she does it so well that it's just really well done. And sorry, I thought I had my cat. Anyway, and but also just throughout the story, because sometimes Patroclus is like, the way he's talking, he's like, you're like, oh my god, get over yourself, you're so clingy. But I think that's, I mean, when you're in love with someone who is just beautiful and everybody else loves him and is like trying to get their attention, it's easy for you to get. I'm sure. Well, I've never. Yeah, I'm sure it's very easy to get very kind of a little bit envious and insecure. But I really think that she does that in such a realistic way, and this build-up of the relationship throughout, it feels very normal and natural, and I mean normal, I mean like something you would see in reality and not just in like mythology or in a book. I really loved that. And yeah, so I thought the love story was really lovely, well done. And this is the type of love story that I like, or like a romance that I like. Because like I think I've said many times on this channel, I can't do romance where it's just about the romance. There needs to be something more. The romance needs to be part of the plot, but not the main plot. And that's definitely what's happening in this book. And it's just, everything is just so natural and flowing in this book that I just really like that. So really, I mean, why am I not giving this book 5 stars? I guess the main reason is that I find it to be just the tiniest bit drawn out. There were a couple of periods in the book that I was just like, get on with it. I am a little bit impatient in regards to those things, but yeah, that kind of maybe made it so that I couldn't give it 5 stars. For me, 5 stars is just if it's perfect. So, and like in this book, they stay with Chiron, who was like a tutor with them, and I found that part to be way too long. And also just some sections of the war itself were kind of a little bit, oh my god, get on with it. But in general, I feel that it's a really good book, and I liked it, and I can see myself reading it again at some point for sure. That's why I bought the hard copy, and I can recommend it 100%. It's a lovely, beautiful love story, but also just fun to see the war, the Trojan War. Like you see Odysseus and some other like famous, Hector and Paris and all these people. that you know from Greek mythology in like different light because of them being shown from the point of view of Patroclus, and I think it's really well done. So I look forward to reading more of Madeline Miller for sure. This is a very strong start for me, and I really enjoyed this book, and I hope you do too. If you have read it, I would love to hear from you in the comments what you thought about my review, yeah. See you in my next video. Bye bye.